To us, 2008 feels like yesterday. The day Europe gained permanent access to its own orbital laboratory, Columbus, was the apex of almost 3 decades of meticulous preparations, endless refinements, and audacious designs that converged in 13 tons of hardware, launched aboard Space Shuttle Atlantis STS-122.
Main safety systems armed. Sound suppression system water activated. Go for main engine start. 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis as Columbus sets sail on a voyage of science to the space station.
Four decades have passed since Neil Armstrong took that giant leap for mankind. On July 16, 1969, America's Space Administration, NASA, fulfilled Kennedy's pledge that the United States would be the first nation to put a man on the moon by 1970. It was a definitive space race victory against Soviet Russia that took 8 years and $25 billion to achieve. But after the 6th and final Apollo mission ended in 1972, why haven't we ever been back? During the Kennedy era, the motivations to dominate space were strong, but the technical obstacles were even stronger. They were in fact so great that some people believed NASA broadcast a live publicity stunt of the moon landings. Amidst the turmoil of the Cold War, the United States and Soviet Union competed for military and technological superiority. Out of the missile-based arms race between the two nations grew the battle for spaceflight capability. And in 1961, the USSR humbled America when Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first man in space. If America was to claim interstellar supremacy, it would have to do something truly momentous. In 1976, 4 years after Apollo 17 made the last journey to the moon, a technical writer called Bill Kaysing, who had access to NASA's spaceflight documents, claimed that the moon landings were in fact a hoax. In his book, We Never Went to the Moon, Kaysing calculated that the chance of a successful moon landing was as small as 0.0017%, because NASA lacked the technical capabilities to fulfill the mission. Nexus publisher Marcus Allen agrees with Kaysing that the difficulty is not getting to the moon, but getting people to the moon. And the main thing stopping us is the James Van Allen radiation belt. This is a layer of charged particles held in place by Earth's magnetic field. In order to reach the moon, Apollo astronauts would have to pass through this belt without any lead shielding on their spacecrafts, exposing them to fatal levels of radiation. For these reasons, it's suspected that the footage from NASA's interstellar missions is entirely staged, that the 1969 moon landing and the 5 that followed were actually filmed within a large soundstage at a Hollywood studio, with production funded by the Walt Disney Company. A moon landing hoax would be significantly cheaper than actually attempting to send astronauts into outer space, and if the footage was convincing enough, then it would still alert Russia to America's technological prowess. It's even been suggested that filmmaker Stanley Kubrick was behind Apollo missions 11 and 12. During the production of his 1968 movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, a whole year before the first moon landings, it's thought that Kubrick was secretly approached by NASA to direct the space missions, and employ the film's advanced special effects to replicate the moon's landscape. Close critiquing of the footage has led skeptics like Kaysing and Allen to refute the official story even further. We only have to look at the background of the NASA photographs. In the moon landscape snaps, there are no stars, where millions of twinkling lights should be. The flag appears to be moving by a slight breeze as it's planted in the ground, despite the fact there is no wind on the moon. And this rock, which seems to have the letter C written on it, gives the impression that this and other rocks are props labelled by a set designer. To create the illusion of low gravity, it's been claimed that the footage was played back 2.5 times slower. When you increase the film speed, the astronauts appear to be moving to Earth's gravity, and the jumps, it's assumed, were created using hidden cables, easily disguised against the black backdrop. Skeptics have also pointed to the moon landing site itself. There is no observable blast crater underneath the lunar module. With evidence mounting through the decades, it's no wonder that between 6 and 20% of Americans believe that the moon landings were a hoax. But for every bit of proof that the missions were staged, there are countless rebuttals from NASA scientists and filmmakers, in addition to third-party evidence that refutes the theory. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and other satellites have captured photographic evidence of the lunar landing sites. Hundreds of scientists and geologists, independent of NASA, have analysed the rock samples retrieved from the Apollo missions and confirmed that they are lunar sediments.
When we actually descended the ladder, it was found to be very much like the lunar gravity simulations we had performed here on Earth.
And as for suspicions over the footage, filmmaker S.G. Collins explains that the camera technology required to fake the moon landings simply didn't exist in the 1960s. As for the moving flag, it was merely shaken when it was planted in the ground. It may be hard to believe, but in the mid-20th century, it was indeed easier to send a man to the moon and film it than fake a televised space mission. Over the following months, StreetCap 1's YouTube video became just one of many official recordings of UFOs, uploaded by ufologists who believe NASA censor their output as part of an